From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. I'm Shelby Varner. Daniel O'Brien, K-State grain economist, begins the show with a grain market update where he highlights what he and others expected from the WASDE report and how the harvest grain market is looking. Beth Hinshaw and Patsy Maddy with Kansas 4-H keep today's show going as they discuss an upcoming youth and volunteer leadership forum and the Kansas Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. Ending the show is K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond as he explains our recent temperature change and what windy conditions can be expected. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Friday show with a grain market update from K-State grain economist Daniel O'Brien. Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Shelby.
Daniel, yesterday, October 9th, we were expecting a WASDE report. However, we did not receive one. So what was that report going to show?
Well, it would have shown how USDA supply-demand balance sheets for major crops would have been impacted by what the USDA National Ag Statistics Service would have found from their crop production survey. And that was, they were gathering data to represent October 1st conditions. So that was part of what was intended to happen. The other part of that would have been that the WASDE supply-demand balance sheets for these major crops were going to also reflect the results of the September 30th, end of September grain stocks and small grain annual summary numbers. So kind of leaves us in the mode of trying to understand or estimate where these the results likely would have been. Now we're looking out to November 9th for the next WASDE report. Hopefully any closures of the U.S. federal government, USDA in particular, will have been resolved by that time. We'll get more information for the market. It does up the ante and increase the potential for volatility, either to the upside or the downside around that November report. So we'll see. But as of right now, we're not completely in the dark as to where things are going. We do have at least independent reports of grain export summaries. We have some idea of what's going on at ethanol plants. We see what cash prices are, cash and futures prices, and we're getting independent harvest reports. So we're pulling all that together, and it makes for a time when we don't have as much solid information going on in the market. However, if this was a time when we had very, very short crops, really, really tight supplies, it would be a much more volatile time than we're in seemingly this year, where crops look pretty good. It may vary some around what final yields and production are, and really we're just quibbling about how high the record yields will be for corn and for soybeans and some of these crops. So we're pretty confident that we're in for a large supply situation where we'll have storage for a fair amount of grain that's not sold at harvest going forward, but we are as we are. Now, I guess in bringing all that together, probably the best information we've got right now would be what the trade anticipates as they pull together what independent information they have. What was expected for the report yesterday out of the average trade estimates were that the U.S. corn yield would drop from that September 12th report number of 186.7 bushels per acre for corn down to 185. So that would have impacted things that unless the USDA changed acres as they had in that September report, that would have dropped U.S. corn production from 16.8 billion bushels down to 16.65, about 16.645. So about 150 million bushels. That would have had some impact on the supply demand balance sheet. We'll see how that goes. On soybeans, the average yield drop would have was projected or thought to drop from 53.5 bushels per acre down to 53.2, a moderate drop. And I would say there's still a fair amount of uncertainty with regard to where these yields are. It does not go unnoticed that in the eastern and central corn belt that we've had dry conditions for a while. Worries about that aren't showing up in the market with regard to soybeans, which mature later, really at all. We haven't seen the markets cash-wise make any strong moves to the high side. We're just holding in pretty steady till we get more information. And if that slight yield decrease occurred for wheat, we would have gone from about 4.3 billion bushels down to 4.27. So again, about 29, 30 million bushels, not a big thing. So we'll see. The ante or the risk, the impact is raised for that November report because of what we have here, and expectations for ending stocks were the other major focus that these markets have. For corn, we did see an expectation of 2.23 billion bushels of stocks being worked out, and a lot of that has to do with issues that came out of that grain stocks report. Basically, the USDA went back in and had increased the size of the 2025 crop by their estimate by about 25 million bushels, had dropped the feed usage number or the residual usage number, which includes feed, by 180 million bushels, and ending stocks for the last marketing year about 1.532, I believe, billion bushels, and that was up about, again, 150 million bushels from what it was before. So bring all that together, especially the new crop beginning stocks figure up to 1.5 billion, and it put us in the mode of looking at ending stocks sharply over 2 billion bushels. We were already in September anticipating that. Now we're at 2.223 billion bushels. If we have any rationing of usage at all, then you're moving instead of 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and as far as anybody looking for a seller's market in the corn, I think we're on the other side of that fence. It's a buyer's market. We're well over 2 billion bushels with regard to the anticipated production we have running through the supply-demand balance sheet, and you just have what you have. For soybeans, the changes in the supply-demand balance sheet, by the time you look at what small changes came out of 2024 and bring those forward, we actually were at 300 million bushels of ending stocks. Now, by my own figures, if the usage doesn't change, we're down below 290. The trade was expecting about 299 million bushels, about unchanged. So that's where I would slightly differ from the trade in terms of where things could go. I have looked at the outcomes of having yields different than the USDA's current high numbers, and when you look at the corn market and see what that balance sheet would look like, corn supply demand balance sheet, with not this record high figure that we've got plugged in of 186.7 bushels an acre, but if you're only down to 184, and I'd say there's about a 40% chance we'll actually hit the 186, 187 bushels an acre figure, and more like 184, 185 thereabouts. So 60% chance that we're lower than that. And you end up dropping the ending stocks figure from 2.3 billion down to 2.1, 2.2. The corn price moves up marginally in a little bit tighter situation, up about look at 22 to 30 some cents higher. If we have lower yields, all else being held equal, you'd have some impact on the corn market to the positive side. Even on beans, again, we're projecting 53.5 bushels per acre, record high, and with that, at least by my calculations, about 286 million bushels. If you end up and have 52 bushels an acre, which is still a sharply pretty high yield, and run that through the numbers instead of you tighten up ending stocks by about 50 million bushels instead of $10 a bushel. You're dropping stocks to use from 6.6 as a percent down to 5.5, and about somewhere around 11 and a quarter per bushel U.S. average price. So right now, in the midst of harvest pressures, it's hard to conceive of anything positive right now in these grain markets. But there's still a lot of uncertainty that's out there to be dealt with on the supply demand side. So I guess our best job now is to go get the crop out of the field, and hopefully it's lots of bushels, and then see around the country where these larger production numbers come in at. It's anticipated they might be a bit high yet, probably move lower, and then shift our attention from now we'll be focusing on supplies all the way through November, really having the potential for a lot of volatility at that time in the markets, and we finally get these USDA numbers in, especially if the production yields are a little bit short, and then see what'll happen in prices. And I think that if we do start to move, if we have some surprise to market, start to move higher, 10, 20, 30 cents because of any changes there, I think that'll be met with probably very aggressive selling, as people will have languished through a pretty low set of corn and soybean prices until that time, and any strength probably be met with very aggressive selling. What's left over after that, in terms of any remaining supplies, we'll look hard at storage function, at storage game, some might say, and just see where we might be at. I have, Shelby, heard a good amount of discussion from people of perhaps moving grain, corn, soybeans, sorghum, then re-ownership in some way on the the futures market, particularly buying call options. So I think all that will be in heavy discussion until that time. One hope that's out there for soybeans and for sorghum is that again, the U.S. and China still involved in negotiations. China's been away from these markets. They come in and start buying tangible, healthy amounts of either of those crops. Probably going to end up and lead us to some higher prices and some selling opportunities. But we'll see.
Daniel, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Shelby. Take care.
That was K-State grain economist Daniel O'Brien. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing some upcoming 4-H events or things that people might want to go ahead and get on their minds with 4-H Youth Development Specialist Beth Hinshaw and Kansas 4-H Special Projects Administrator Patsy Maddy. Beth, Patsy, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Shelby.
We're glad to be here.
Beth, first wanting to start off discussing something that's taking place November 22nd through the 23rd at Rock Springs, the Kansas Youth Leadership Forum. And what is this event?
So the Kansas Youth Leadership Forum is a leadership learning opportunity for young people who are 14 to 18 by January 1 of 2026. And what our KYLF, that's Kansas Youth Leadership Forum, that's the initials, what our objectives are, that we want young people to broaden their understanding of the meaning of leadership and the qualities of a leader, and then to practice leadership skills that they can use in other situations like their local 4-H club, their school, and their community.
And while we're thinking about that leadership development, what are the different opportunities or ways they're going to learn about it?
One thing that we'll do is we will elect our 2026 Kansas 4-H Youth Leadership Council. And that's a really great opportunity, not just for the young people who are running, but also other young people to see, candidates getting up there and speaking in front of the group and talking about their ideas for 4-H. Other important components are we always have a speaker. This year we have Brandon Lee White, and he's been a speaker for us. It's been several years, and we're really excited to have him back. And his whole presentation is going to be about owning it, owning your leadership, using your leadership. And I just think he's going to really leave people excited and ready to go. Another important part is our workshops. And we have, probably 12 different workshops for our participants to choose from. And they're anywhere from time management, working on your resume and cover letter, and then, understanding some skills that you'll need for college, and career, learning about overseas opportunities through 4-H, and a lot more. And then, with all 4-H activities and educational experiences, what we know is that small group learning, getting acquainted with young people from other counties, other districts. That's just a lot of fun, and it's a learning opportunity as well.
Is there also a learning opportunity for adult volunteers that same weekend?
Yes, there sure is. We just think this is the perfect match that we have young people for the leadership forum. And then at the same time, we have the Kansas 4-H Volunteer Forum. And we want that to be an opportunity for 4-H volunteers from around the state to learn together while building a network of like-minded and passionate volunteers. Much like the Leadership Forum, they have a program as well. They'll actually be hearing from the same speaker, but they have some fantastic programs on volunteer burnout and artificial intelligence and what a 4-H volunteer needs to know. And then also some reports from Kansas State University from some other departments and some work we've been doing as Kansas 4-H with them. So I think they've got a really strong program this year as well.
What is the deadline?
People need to be registered by October the 15th.
And how can they go about doing that?
So if you go to the Kansas 4-H website, or if you happen to follow us on Facebook, we have some information there as well. But you'll be looking for the Kansas Youth Leadership Forum and the Kansas 4-H Volunteer Forum.
And Patsy, another opportunity for Kansas 4-H youth, the State Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. And while taking place in April, now might be a good time for them to think about if they want to get involved in it.
Definitely. This will be the third year that Kansas 4-H and K-State Extension is involved with Network Kansas. They are the founders of this competition. It started, I believe, 13 years ago. So we are anxious to get more of our extension professionals involved in this competition and in this program. The youth, most of the time, we have a teacher who is a champion that helps teach the program and helps the youth develop their portfolio and their business plan. They have to do marketing. They have to figure out who are they marketing to. They conduct a needs assessment within their community to see maybe if they want to do a dog walking business, but maybe there's already 5 dog walking businesses in their community. So that's something that there's not a need for. So they do a needs assessment to see if the business that they want to create will be viable in their community. The goal is to continue to build businesses within our, especially small communities. As we all know, especially the rural communities, it's very difficult to get businesses and get them to stay and retain. And so this is a good way for our youth. Number one, it's a career pathway for them. And with 4-H and our project areas, it's just a really good transition from the project to building a business within that project. And so the sky's the limit. It teaches them financials, marketing, public speaking, because they do have to present in front of judges. And also some businesses have kind of like a Shark Tank. And so businesses will come in and they will actually support the one that they think is going to do the best and be successful. And so we've had some youth that have had their products on the shelves in local grocery stores or other businesses. Some of them, it doesn't always have to be a product. It can be a service. Before we logged on today, I went back and I kind of looked at some of the different areas, especially ag, since this is ag today. So some of the businesses that were at last year's state competition these were conceptual, so they aren't existing yet, but this is their idea. There was an ag drone service, a gotcha gutters, so cleaning gutters, precision aerial application, mobile car wash, La Roche layers, they sell eggs. And then some of the existing businesses were GG Junkyard Farms. They take all kinds of scrap metal and stuff, and they make really cool, unique designs with that. Green Waves Lawn Solutions, Maxwell Kids Farm to Table was a really good business. They actually are 4-H kids that raise animals, and then they produce them and they sell them to individuals within the community that are looking for meat products. And so it's from farm to table. So it's just a really neat business and a really neat project. But with that, there is money backing it with these competitions. And so they have the ability to possibly win some funding to help continue to increase their businesses.
And what are the different levels a youth would have to go through to make it to the state competition?
There are competitions within local communities. A lot of them are within e-communities, and that's usually through the economic development. And so that's actually trying to get businesses to come into their communities and stay. And so there's a sanction fee of $1,500. And communities that are e-communities, that fee gets waived for them. Other communities that are non-e-communities, they try to get grant funding or get sponsors within their communities like banks or whatever. So that's that competition. Most of these competitions happen within the schools. So they support and they teach the youth what's happening and how to build their business.
The State Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge is taking place April 28th through the 29th. And what do those 2 days look like if someone is able to attend?
So you had asked me previously how they get to the state competition. So they have to win their local competition. And so they are the first place winner. And if that person cannot go, they usually try to have an alternate that can go. And so all of those kids go to Manhattan. There are also wild card options. So maybe if you got second place or third place, but you really think your business is a viable business and you can do really well, maybe you just had a bad day at the local competition, you can apply for a wild card position. They select 15 to 16 or 17, depending on the quality of the applications. And they also get to go to the state competition. And so it's a competition that just continues to grow and grow and grow. And so that's why we are doing the 2-day competition this next year. We're going to do the trade show and the design challenge the first evening. And then we'll do the actual competition where the youth have to present in front of a judge, 2 judges, 3 different times. And so it's a very tough competition.
Patsy, if someone's interested in it, how do they find out more information?
They can contact either myself or Zyra Ruiz or Bailey Henry with Network Kansas, or you can contact your local extension office. Once they do that, we have regional coaches across the state as well, and they will be able to help them a little bit more in depth. And there's curriculum out there as well.
Patsy, Beth, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Kansas 4-H Special Projects Administrator Patsy Maddy and 4-H Youth Development Specialist Beth Hinshaw. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Friday show with a weather update from K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. Chip, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Chip, we've seen quite a bit cooler temperatures in Kansas, and is that something we're going to see hold on?
Well, this cool weather's on the heels of what was a really warm and really windy period for Kansas late last week and into the weekend. We had temperatures reaching the 90-degree mark and wind gusts up to 35, 40 miles an hour. That was obviously much above normal for the time of the year. And then we had a pretty potent cold front come through early part of the week that resulted in some more precipitation, which is not necessarily what everyone wanted to see. We had totals as much as 3 inches up along the Nebraska border in Washington, Marshall counties. And then we saw kind of streaks going back to the south and southwest from there. Kind of needed, though, after the warm. You know, we get that kind of warm air and we get that. We didn't have low humidities, thankfully, but when we get that kind of wind, that surface moisture from previous rains dries up really fast. And even with the vegetation, it's not growing, but slowly sliding into dormancy, we still can lose that topsoil moisture. And I think that happened really fast last weekend. And so it's kind of good to get a rain right on the heels of that, along that cold front, to kind of catch us up, at least keep us close to normal. When we look at just the 7-day total compared to normal, precipitation was still below normal in parts of southeast Kansas. They're still running about an inch below normal. That area is actually one of the areas that almost completely missed out. And western Kansas also, for the most part, missed out with a 1/4 to 3/10, 4/10 of an inch of rain, moisture below normal for the week. And we're getting in that drier time of the year, so our normals are falling. We're down to about 3/10 of an inch on average in the west and about 9/10 of an inch in the southeast, and everyone else in between. That cold front did bring cooler weather and drier air. Finally, some drier air, and that dry air lets us cool off at night. We had temperatures down into the 40s. Kansas measured its first sub 40-degree reading in Sheridan County. On Wednesday morning, they got down to 39.8 to be specific, which does round up to 40, but we still broke the 40-degree mark, and that's not something we had done yet this fall. And temperatures have been pretty warm long term, and Wednesday was below normal by about a degree, but as you look to the forecast in the future, that's not going to last very long.
Can we be planning to warm up when we look at our forecast?
Yeah, warmer temperatures already occurring, and we're going to see temperatures back up to that low to mid 80-degree mark. I still see a 90 or 2 at western Kansas over the weekend. Not as much wind, at least through Saturday. Winds really start picking up Saturday night into Sunday. That's when we'll start seeing that 30, 40 mile an hour winds. It's fall. We see winds typically pick up, especially when we're getting these bigger temperature swings. And that's going to usher in a cold front that should come through Sunday night and into Monday. That'll keep temperatures a little bit cooler, but it's also going to bring that front is going to be the focus for more precipitation. And right now, that front's going to drape across the plains into the southwestern United States, where we have yet another hurricane in the East Pacific that's going to funnel that moisture north and east along that front. Right now, it's all going to depend on that frontal timing. If that front's a little stronger and sooner, it's going to shift most of the moisture off to our south and our east. But if it's a little bit later, we're going to see more of that moisture kind of funnel across the state. And that'll allow for maybe up to an inch of rain in places by middle of the week. I don't think that we're going to have a huge influx of moisture. Southwest they're going to get dumped on. They're talking 5-6 inches of rain. But we're going to lose a lot of that moisture as it moves over the mountains. And overall, just a drier air across the plains will help us. The thing is, we add more moisture to the atmosphere. Temperatures aren't going to cool off anytime soon. So we're still going to be above average because there's so much moisture in the air. And looking out in the future for a frost or freeze still, that moisture is going to hold us through all of next week for the most part with warmer temperatures. And then maybe as you get to like the 20th, 23rd time frame, we might get another front that's a little bit more powerful. But we'll get there when we get there. Right now, I think that's going to trend warmer just with no cold air building to our north. So warmer than normal temperatures, another influx of moisture early next week. That'll bring us to average precipitation for the week. We'll see what happens after that.
Chip, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yep, thanks for having me.
That was K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. That's all we have for you this week on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you on Monday.